Humans are innately social beings. We converse with each other. We share moments of joy, excitement, and sadness. Just going a few days without human interaction is enough to make a person go insane. So how come when it comes to speaking in front of a crowd, that's when things begin to fall apart? Public speaking is a skill that's ever so prized in today's society, yet also remains as one of the most daunting ones as well. And why is that the case? This is exactly the question that was on my mind precisely 9 years ago, back when I was in 3rd grade, and I had been assigned my very first public speaking assignment. I had 3 presentations about 3 books. Being the unconcerned and uninterested kid that was back in the day, I instead wanted to focus on what was of utmost importance to me at the time: gaming. And as time passed, I had 2 weeks left to do these 3 presentations, and I had not even started yet. I was at a loss for what to do, but what I distinctly remember was my mom coming into my room and telling me this one story. She had been in college, and she recalled of this one time in which she was assigned a public speaking assignment just like me. And unlike me, she didn't procrastinate on this subject. And it's also important to note as well that she was also disadvantaged. English is not her first language, but still she persisted. And by the time that all the people presented and that the professor had finished grading, she ended up being the only person to get an A on this test. My mom firmly believed that the good speaking genes that she had been passed down to me, and that I too could do a solid job on this assignment. To me, this story seemed a little bit silly, and I didn't think too much of it, but it was enough to get me through those 3 presentations. Bottom line was that I got it done. Fast forwarding a few years to middle school, I got hooked onto YouTube. And while I was browsing through my YouTube recommended page, one of the videos that I saw on there was a video of Steve Jobs presenting the very first iPhone. Now, initially, I clicked off of sheer curiosity. I wanted to see just how far the first iPhone had come, especially with its tiny display and absence of an app store. And it was a very fun and amusing video to watch, but what I specifically remember from this video was that I was looking through the comments, and they were vastly different than what I was thinking that they would be. I was thinking I would see people talking about how the iPhone's initial 2-megapixel camera pales in comparison to the kinds of cameras that we have on today's smartphones. But instead what I saw were people lamenting about how much they missed Steve Jobs, and that the way that he was the face of the company, the way that he had charismatic personality, and above all, his stellar speaking skills. And I only went back to this video just a few days ago to find that someone had actually been assigned to this video as part of a public speaking class. And with all this in mind, I chose to watch this video again, taking less note of the content itself, and I instead wanted to focus on more of the way that Steve Jobs presented. I took note of the way that he would pace around the room, and how he would talk to his audience in a clear and concise manner. Now we fast forward again to junior year of high school. And it was at this time in which I became the vice president of our school's geography club. We are a club that meets once per week, and we are committed to doing games. Sometimes we do debates, sometimes we host tournaments. But above all though, we just want to ensure that people are enthusiastic and are excited about a subject that we highly believe to be underrepresented in today's education system. And through it all, I got to enhance my speaking skills even further. It's one thing to be assigned projects in class on presentations such as that, but to be able to speak about geography, a subject that I held high regard for, and a subject that I had high passion for, I felt I was able to talk as freely as I wanted to. It also helped as well that all the other officers were seniors, and that they would be going away next year, meaning I'd be the only one to take over the club. And so they made sure to keep the club in the best of hands as possible. And by doing so, for every single time that I would present, they would always be sure to follow up with constructive criticism and good advice. I can remember this one time when one of my officers told me that I had done a great job of projecting my voice, but that next time I should make sure to get the full, undivided attention of my audience. Hopefully I've been doing a good job of keeping that in check so far. So with that, we now fast forward to today. Here I stand giving a speech about how I have improved my speech over time. And what's the point of all this? The answer to me, I would say, is growth. Growth, I would say, in my opinion, comes naturally. Sure, you may cause it to occur at a faster rate or a slower rate, but by no means can you force growth to just occur. As I've learned through my public speaking journey, I've come to realize that growth comes in 2 main aspects. One being appraisal, and the other being self-interest. On the topic of appraisal, we often don't do this because we see it as redundant, but by just simply letting someone know that they did a good job on some certain task, or that letting someone know that you really like how they did this certain assignment is enough to boost one's self-confidence greatly. And I can speak from experience as well. From the anecdote that my mom told me about her college story to the appraisal of my officer team, I can say that it has been a great benefit on my journey. I also want to highlight the idea of self-interest as well. I know that it may sound silly to just have parents say that, oh, they should let their kids do what they please without any supervision at all. But to an extent though, I can't agree with the statement. Because it was through my own self-interest that I chose to watch that video on Steve Jobs and have them present on the iPhone. And it was through my own self-interest that I chose to become an officer for the Geography Club. And I can say for a fact that it would not have had the same effect had I chosen instead to, my parents had chosen me to enroll me in a public speaking class against my own will. Or had I been forced to do an English presentation on some book that I quote-unquote read about 10 minutes ago. English teachers, looking at you. And finally, as I conclude my speaking journey, I may never know if those good speaking genes got passed down to me from my parents, but taking a look at the path that has put me on, I am very much satisfied with the results. And that is my personal experience with growth. Thank you for listening.